All right, it's the battle for America, so be there or be square, as I like to say. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing great. Welcome,
looking
everyone.
Spiffy as usual. Looking spiffy there, man. Now, what flag did you get that shirt off of? That's what I want to know. Whose porch did you steal it from?
The neighbor's looking for his flag. You can't hang it.
Yeah, I guess
hey, everybody.
So. There you go. Jonathan, what's happening? Hey, are the rumors that I heard about you true? I don't
Which
even
rumors?
answer that one.
No,
don't even answer that.
I'm certain they're all lies. Somebody made them up.
All right, we got to bring in a guest here because we always want to have a guest on our show tonight, and Pastor Dan Sams. Pastor Dan Sams. Let me get this up here so it makes it easier on myself here. Here we go. Pastor Daniel Sams, Restoration Church in Amherst, Ohio. We kind of talked a little bit the other day. I said, man, you got some fascinating stuff. We got to get you on the show, and we got to get into all of it. And I put this out as the title for the show tonight, The Battle for America. And I think that's very apropos, if you want to use that words. Good evening. Hey, if you're in the chat, we would appreciate you to just chat away. We want to hear what you got to say out there tonight. That would be awesome. So we're going to be talking about a lot of subjects here that you're not allowed to talk about. For instance, Islam, Muslims, Christianity, politics, religion. What else is there? I mean, we're banned from speaking about those topics, but we're going to cover them anyhow tonight. How does that sound? But I want to welcome you. So let me do this here because I do have your church. Let me just cut to this for a minute here on your website. Restoration Church, make disciples, gather together, and get equipped. You're the pastor there. Could you just tell us briefly what all that means? Okay.
Yeah. So I've been pastoring Restoration Church for about 12 years. And our idea when we planted the church was to be as stripped down and simple as possible so that we could focus on the gathering of the saints and then discipling people, actually putting time into developing people into followers of Christ, and then equipping them to do the faithful ministry work. So we have a high value for theological education, for Christian apologetics. It so happens my PhD is in theology and apologetics, so that helps. And so our church is very built around being active, having a good, faithful fellowship, making disciples, and going and winning the world for Christ.
All right. So we had gotten on a topic the other day talking about Christianity and Islam and everything. And doing a little bit of research over the last day or so, I've come to a conclusion, and you might agree with this conclusion, that yeah, Islam can be an issue. The Muslims coming in, we could talk about that as an issue. But we got to start looking in the mirror too, right? I mean, the main problem here is that for Christians, we're not organizing. You know, we say, hey, we need to develop some political policies for Christians. Where are the Christians? You know, we're not out in forefront. We're not out like some of these other groups. Islam, Muslims. I'm just going to stick with those two categories. There's a lot of other categories that we could get into, but they're out there recruiting. They're out there gathering together as groups, voting as one block. They're trying to make things happen. And the one thing they're not shy about is their faith. They are not shy about their faith and what they believe. How come in Christianity it seems like we have to just put duct tape on our mouths?
Yeah. Great insight there, brother, because we're at a time right now where Muslims are only making up about 1 to maybe 1.3% of the U.S. population, and Ohio kind of mirrors that. In Ohio, we have 64% that claim to be Christian, and yet most Christians you talk to, when you say, oh, I think we need to pass this law and we need to make this move and we need to point to Scripture as the foundation for this, they get really nervous. As if somehow the public square is a neutral zone that we're not supposed to touch religiously. And I always like to say, guess what? Nobody else thinks it's neutral. The leftists don't see it as neutral. The Marxists don't see it as neutral. The Mohammedans certainly don't see it as neutral. And they're organized and they're proactive. And so we should be, and not in reaction just to that, but for the mere fact that our entire society is built on biblical values and biblical commands. The thing I'm telling people, I'm like, don't black pill. We are winning. We just need to act like it. We need to quit sitting around and being soft and treating the public square like neutral. Christ is king, and we need to establish laws and act like it. So, yeah, we need to get organized, which is what I'm about.
Yeah, okay. So when we look at religion here in this country, the predominant religion is Christianity.
Absolutely.
By far and away. I mean, vastly more than the Muslims, for instance. What would you say that the Muslims' population is in this country, or even Ohio? If you have any, do you have any now?
In Ohio, it's about 120,000. About 120,000 Muslims in Ohio. Now, I recognize that there's some illegal immigration that can squeak that number around, but roughly 120,000 is what we're looking at. Okay, it's not very many.
When you're looking at, I'm going to pull in some that I'm familiar with, like with Columbus. With Columbus, you have the Somalians. They have a huge African Somalian population in Columbus. Okay, and there's been a lot of Medicaid fraud being tied to the Somalians. We've talked about that on this show repeatedly, over and over and over. But yet, okay, you've got, I don't know how many they got, maybe they got 50,000, but they're all assimilated together in a group. They vote as a group. They don't really assimilate into this country very well. It's the same thing in Springfield, where we have the Haitians, because I've talked to people in Springfield, it's the same thing. They're not really assimilating into this country, becoming part of this country. No. They're trying to make this country, part of their old country, I guess. But it also goes with their beliefs, with their religion, and they're not shy about it at all.
Yeah.
They're bringing
not even
law.
A little bit.
What was that, Brian?
They're bringing Sharia law into the mix, and this has been a long, slow march. It's called the red-green axis, where the communists and the Muslims have been getting together to destroy Western civilization.
Yep. Now I've heard a lot. I've heard a lot about that too. Is that something that you've written about? Because I know you've written a couple of books on something similar to this topic. Is that something you've written about at all, or not?
A little bit. So looking more at just kind of what's happening politically, if we're looking historically, everyone seems to be afraid right now of the big old boogeyman of what they were calling Christian nationalism, right? And so anytime a Christian would say, well, we need to establish this law that honors God, the sociologists, the Marxists would label that Christian nationalism, which is what I did write my dissertation on, is an analysis of Christian nationalism. And essentially the conclusion I came to, the sociologist will say that what makes you a Christian nationalist is being a Bible-believing and politically conservative. Well, that's pretty much every faithful Christian. And so their attempt is to try to make that look like something bad. What I have been saying is it's going to be nationalism one way or the other. It's either going to be Muslim nationalism, or it's going to be Marxist nationalism, or it's going to be gay nationalism, or it's going to be Christian nationalism. If you believe that your ideology or your religion somehow being implemented in the public square is some type of whatever that is nationalism, then guess what? Everybody is coming to the public square with some type of a nationalistic idea in that sense. And so I have told Christians, quit allowing this label of Christian nationalism to be used to push you out of public action. Our founding fathers were Christians by and large. 50 of the 55 founding fathers were actually part of confessional churches, where they had to hold to an explicitly Christian, what we would call evangelical view. And so, what we're seeing is everywhere in which the Christians kind of get soft and are afraid to push Christian ideology, what ends up happening is in the power void, you get Mohammedans, or you get Marxists, or you get Nazis, right? Whatever the power void is. And that's why it has to be Christians. It has to be Christ king over the public square. Because once you have Christ, well, then you have all of the biblical values. You think about all the things that come from that. Things like not coercing faith, things like property rights, things like loving your neighbor. When godly laws are enacted, what you get is the Constitution of the United States. And it's notable that the Mohammedans and the Marxists, they hate that. So, I have written on that some, mostly from the angle of the Christians being too soft and then what happens when we're too soft.
Okay, now would you say that we are at a risk here of losing our freedom? There is this whole movement among some of the younger generation now with this democratic socialism, where they want to, communism sounds like the great new, save all.
Yeah.
So that's a problem too. And again, it goes directly against Christianity, doesn't it? Communism could never be in conformity with Christianity. So what is it we got to do then? What is it we got to do?
Yeah, so there's a few things. One, in my forthcoming book, Christian Federalism, we're addressing a few things. One, we need to understand that the idea of a Christian basis for law does not violate the First Amendment. In fact, the First Amendment was designed to protect that. I tell people, the First Amendment only prohibits Congress from establishing a natural religion or a national religion, religion at the federal level, that is. And the reason why they put that in there was because 12 of the 13 states had been officially designated as Christian states with a variety of denominations. And so if we'd had a denomination at the federal level, that would have created conflict. And so the idea was, we want to protect the churches at the state level. We want to protect the state religions at the founding. And so that was the whole purpose there. So when we understand that, and we see like Thomas Jefferson himself, he goes home and he writes laws against blaspheming the Christian God. Right? Think about that. Thomas Jefferson, who was probably the furthest, he was still broadly Christian. I wouldn't call him a faithful theologian or faithful Christian brother, but even that guy says, well, you can't blaspheme the Christian God, right? So the first thing we need to do is recognize that we have been a Christian nation. The Holy Trinity case in the Supreme Court affirmed that. For crying out loud, the Treaty of Paris opens with the language of "in the name of the most holy and undivided Trinity." That document that officially makes us a nation is a Christian document. And so we can go through all of these things and say that's the first thing. We need to acknowledge that we have always been a Christian nation, and so we need to quit being soft. The idea of like, I need to treat this as neutral ground is insane. We need to be bold, we need to be clear. And so with that, there's 4 areas that I talk about us needing to function. One is family. We know that families that are intact build cultures. And so we have lower crime rate, and there's wonderful stats on all of this. I can actually cite if we need to. But family is the first thing. Men being faithful to their wives, loving their children, and raising them in the things of God. The second thing is church. We can actually tie a very clear data set to the fact that people who are faithful in church now have stronger marriages. Communities where there's high church attendance have low crime rate. We can even point to people in dangerous urban areas that when there's a cluster of people who are intact families attending church, that little area actually has really low crime. So I'm like, we need churches. And what's interesting is it has to be faithful conservative churches. A couple who only attends church once a week or so actually has a higher divorce rate than the couple who attends weekly. In fact, if you're the key recipe is two visits per week. So if you can be in a Bible study and in Sunday morning worship, the divorce rate is really low, but that only works if it's a conservative Christian church. The leftist churches don't actually have the same rates, which is kind of a wild thing.
And it also helps if you're praying together too, right? The husband and the wife, the kids, and everything like that. If you pray together, that would help immensely.
The other thing I say we need to do that seems kind of controversial is churches need to organize politically. And this is where there has to be something huge that happens. I have a friend of mine who ran for public office, and it was like a school board, and he ran against people who had organized, and they had put all of their flyers together, right? So it's like 2 people that share the same ideas, and so everything they're doing is a compounded effort, right? And so one of the things we need to do is get churches to say, you know what, how many people would it take for us to swing the school board to conservative Christian values? And then we need to find and recruit those people from maybe 3 conservative churches in the area. And we're like, we're going to run you, but we're going to run you together. And then we're going to promote you between the churches. And the idea is we're going to get the vote out. You guys, a lot of times a school board or a city council is swung by 50 or 100 votes. That's one faithful church getting the vote out for their people. They have notoriously low turnouts. All we have to do is get out. So we can do things like that where we actually organize, we communicate together, and we say we're going to put a Christian in office, and when he's there, he's going to remove all of the DEI material. He's going to remove all the trans stuff from the school library. We're going to review all of the educational materials, and we're essentially going to take over and put God-honoring things in there. And so that's the third thing. Politically, we've just got to organize and recognize we've got weight to throw around, and so we should do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way to do it. The other organizations are doing that, as we talked about with the Muslims and some of the other organizations. That's exactly what they're doing. I'm going to go around the horn here in a minute, but I do want to play this one clip also. This clip is not really diverging from the subject a little bit. This is about communism and stuff, which I think is part of this whole conversation as well. And again, Ron DeSantis, who I think is the greatest governor there is in this great country of ours, has really stepped forward and done something I think pretty spectacular. Watch this a minute.
Inside this Florida classroom, students in Miss Colbert's World History class are now required by law to learn about the history of communism. From the dangers of the
Learn about the history of communism. What do you think of that?
Soviet Union, the Chinese Communist Revolution, and North Korea.
You know, when Christianity gets weak, this is what happens right
Fidel
here.
Castro regime in Cuba.
Communism.
Fox News reviewed the Florida Education Department's new guidelines. One of the mandatory topics, how socialism could lead to a communist regime rising to power.
We're going to tell the truth about communism in the state of Florida.
Okay, we're going to tell the truth about what's going on with communism in Ohio. There is a little bit more of that clip, but I'm going to get a little bit more discussion going here. So let me bring Jonathan in here. I'm sure you got something to say to the pastor here. He's a good man.
Yeah, I sure do. I've been making notes actually since before we kicked off the show. Well, I can tell I need to make a trip to Amherst, Ohio, because interestingly, and this is God's provision, God really has put this conversation smack dab on the forefront. Just this morning, before church, my wife and I were listening to a podcast from a pastor that I follow out of Texas, Josh Howerton. I like him a lot. And it's funny because I started making notes while this conversation was taking place, and Josh Howerton was actually making many of the exact same points were just made during this podcast. So that saves me a long trip over to Texas to try and engage with people who understand the plight that we're in this dynamic. The thing that I want to start off with is encouragement for our listening audience, and it has to do with name calling. Get used to it. There's a conversation I've had it many times when I've talked about Protect Ohio Children, where I served as a board member, chair, and territory lead. And one of the things that started, and it was breathtaking, it shocked people when it started in school board races, is name calling. As soon as you show up and you're anything other than Marxist, leftist, socialist, communist, whatever, if you didn't follow the narrative, then you were called whatever. You're racist. You must be racist. That was slapped on pretty much everybody. And it was shocking. And a lot of people just went mute. They went silent. Oh my gosh, it hurts to be called racist. I don't want to be called racist. But then it was actually, and I was exposed to that when my wife ran for a school board in Beechwood some years ago. We were accused of that, and I was accused of all kinds of other nonsense. And it was shocking. But I was told by some black conservative friends of mine, so what? Put on your big boy pants. There's work to be done, and we've got a country to lead. In the same way, and Pastor called it out, when you show up and just say, hey, look, what you're doing to fill in the blank to children in the school boards, in local politics, that's just wrong. When they call you something, fill in the blank, some stupid name, you're a white nationalist or you're a Christian nationalist or whatever, then it's incumbent upon us to ask the question, what exactly does that mean and why are you calling me names? Let's focus on the actual issue at hand, which is the administration of this school board, the proper duties and responsibilities of this board, whatever. It's imperative that more people put on their big boy pants, get past the stupid, ridiculous name calling, because that's meant to shut us up. One last thing that I want to, I could probably, we could make this a 4-hour segment, and I'd be thrilled. But one thing I want to put back on on pastors, I turn the microphone back over to you, Pastor, is collaboration. So personally, this is my perspective, the truth that I've come to, having lived in Beechwood, there are great commonalities with people outside of my faith that allow America great breathing room for opportunity for collaboration. What we're supposed to do is be pitted against each other and not collaborate. And you can dissect it in any number of ways, Catholic versus Christian versus Jew. I don't personally believe in any of that. If you believe in American principles, which to its core, there's no arguing with me, is based on Judeo-Christian values. It's based on the Bible. We literally wrote the founding documents based upon the Bible. And if we allow ourselves to be dissected, then it's divide and conquer. I could go on with other notes that I've made, but I don't want to hog the microphone. I'll turn it back over to you, Pastor.
Yeah, great thoughts, brother. And so you bring it up, the name-calling thing, and I'll point out historically that has been a tactic of the Marxists from the very beginning, right? Because if they can change the language and then attack you with that and make you sound like something that you're not, they've already won. The Bolsheviks did that, which is why the Bolsheviks were able to take over Russia with a very small number of people. I think people don't realize Bolsheviks were a tiny little fragment of Russia, and yet they took over and implemented a progressivist regime, which is why I'm like, just because it's a small number doesn't mean that they're not your enemy and that they don't have a chance. We got to play to win. So yeah, the other thing is there's an excellent book by Douglas Wilson called The Serrated Edge that talks about the proper use of rough, tough language. Because it's interesting, the people that name call us, it sure hurts their feelings when you use strong language back to them. Not that we should be crude, but we can be very firm, and it's effective. They hate that. In fact, I'll mention one of the things that's happening, especially with the Christian nationalism terminology, which is I just say, just whatever. I'm a Christian. We're in a nation. Call me whatever. I don't care. Like, if that means I'm a Christian nationalist, well, that's kind of a silly terminology. It's part of why I use the word Christian federalism in my book. But one of the things I noticed in my dissertation is that they have even twisted the meaning of words like sexism, words like ethnocentrism, words like racism to mean almost the opposite of what it means. So then when they throw that term at you, they are absolutely making a deceptive ploy to get people to think the wrong thing about you. And as Scripture says, when we are slandered, we're to entreat. We don't let that happen. We hold the line and we make clarification. But I think you're making great statements here. I want to mention one other thing, because I saw a commenter was saying that if a church endorses a candidate, can't they lose their 501c3 status? I'll point out two things on that. First of all, that's based on the Johnson Amendment. That was a mess. That was a wicked, wicked thing. Imagine the idea that churches are not allowed to be politically engaged because of something that President Johnson pushed through. That's wicked, wicked, wicked. However, the IRS, it was July 7th of 2025, essentially filed a court ruling that essentially says that no longer really applies. So, yeah, first of all, be willing to risk your 501c3 status, boys. If Jesus is king and I trust him, he's the God who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, I can deal with losing his 501c3 status. But you're probably not going to lose it anyway. So hold the line.
Yeah, I think sometimes I wonder if pastors don't use that 501c3 as a scapegoat because they don't want to get involved. Yeah. It seems like a lot of pastors, they're just like, they're in talk about it being intimidated, being called a name. It just frightens the heck out of them. So the 501c3, I don't know, I've heard about that, but let me tell you something. There is no such thing as separation of church and state. It doesn't exist. When you get into Islam, when you get into the Muslims, when you get into some of these foreign countries that are coming in here, they're 100% touting their religion, get out of the way, and we've got to become stronger in all this. I really believe that. What do you think, Brian? How you doing?
Yeah, great. Pastor Sams, I'm so glad you joined us this evening, believe me. And I would like to, if Jonathan's going over to Amherst, I'd like to join him because we need to talk. Because what I see happening in my life is that I see Christianity coming to the forefront. As I mentioned offline, that we're involved with former Representative Ron Young with his gospel message on September 17th. We had him on the show a week or so ago, and we're going to have him again. But the movement to abolish Ohio property taxes, there's a common denominator I see, and that is Christianity. The people that are really, really behind this movement, they see it is more than just a dollar and cent. It is a freedom and liberty issue, and that private property is the foundation of that freedom and liberty. And what we see are the communists. It's been a 100-year march where they've slowly but surely tried to erode the Christian faith in the United States. They've done a marvelous job, so far. Yeah. But now that we see that they've joined, with the Red Green Axis with the Muslims, we Christians need to really wake up. Unfortunately, here, just here in Lake County, when I'm talking to people that profess that they're Christian, and I say, what about the commandment to love thy neighbor? And we were talking about property taxes. They say, well, I can pay my property taxes. And I say, well, what about your neighbor? And they said, well, that's their problem. So we may call ourselves Christians. But then I ask, well, how many people have really read the Bible? My life changed when I read the Bible. I attended 4 Bible studies a week to get really enmeshed in the Bible readings, and that changed my life. So we need to get together because I see we have more things in common, and I think we should build on that, Pastor. I really do.
I fully agree, brother.
Great idea. Great idea. Build on it. Go ahead.
Yeah, just complete agreement there, brother. And yeah, we are seeing this working between the Mohammedans and the Marxists to advance their agenda. And as you say, they don't give any concern for the Constitution. They're pushing to take over and put their law in place. And so one of the things people ask me, they're like, well, if we implement all these Christian laws, what's going to happen to the atheists? And what's going to happen to the Muslims? And what's going to happen to the Hindus? And I'm like, you know what? They're going to reap the benefit of being under the lordship of Christ. Even if they don't come to repentance and faith. I mean, all these things that we love come from Scripture. Like we can look, the Founding Fathers cited Deuteronomy more than any other book. Right? Things like property taxes are built into our constitutional idea because they're right into building or loving our neighbor. And so we're going to see everybody's lives are better under Christ. And so when people are like, we have to treat everything fair, I'm like, no. We have to be just under the lordship of Christ, and his law is perfect.
Yeah, and what is it that you believe? What is it that you truly believe? And if you truly believe that Christ is God, you're going to proclaim that, and you're not going to worry about the atheist, right? Because you're going to stand before God, not before that atheist. He's got to stand before God, right? So we got to all agree on that. I want to show you this clip here. This, again, is on communism. This is from the Epoch Times. I took a little snippet out. I want people to realize we're not playing games here. This is how serious the consequences are with communism here. Okay, so they were saying right back here, let me just back this up a second. From 1958 to 1982, Venezuela was the richest country in Latin America. The richest because they were a free country, a capitalistic society, and they were the wealthiest in Latin America. Watch what happens. You got 2 socialists back to back. Chavez, Hugo Chavez, who destroyed the country, and then Maduro, Nicolas Maduro, comes along here. During the next 8 years, they lost 3/4 of their GDP.
Al comandante Hugo Chávez.
And 8 million of the people fled that country.
Que cumpliremos.
Look at that. Then, of course, the United States went in under Trump, and we captured Maduro. Okay, what I'm getting to real quick here, I'm gonna fast forward it. Look at when you go through there. Look at, you have all these eyes watching you. You have the signage of the dictator, and if you do anything wrong, they come and get you. That's what I want to show you right now. Then we get back to our conversation. This is the part that I wanted to make sure that we saw what they did to some of these pretty much innocent people.
Edward Ocariz, a human rights activist who was jailed for 4 months during the 2024 elections. He is still awaiting a summons for trial. 10 armed men with no ID took him from his home with no due process,
no due process, nothing. They just came, took him away.
Falsas denuncias, falsos levantamientos de
false accusations, false police reports,
falsos expedientes para meterlos presos. Que si dices algo, no te voy a dar la bolsa de la comida para que puedas alimentarte. Pasamos de eso al terrorismo psicológico en Venezuela. Pasamos de eso a la criminalizar a cualquier persona que sea disidente o que ellos consideren.
Yeah, I don't even think that guy did anything. Now listen to this one right here real quick, and we'll get back to talking. This one is very hard to listen to, I think.
He was detained in 2018 accused of taking part on a drone attack against Maduro, which gave him a 30-year
drone
sentence.
Attack.
Rivas' case was solely put together by regime agencies, with the evidence used to sentence him consisting of confessions obtained under torture. Rivas had no right to due process, fair trial, or treatment.
Mi hermano. In other words, this guy confessed to the crime, got 30 years, but only after they tortured the hell out of him. Watch it. I mean, this is very difficult to watch, I think.
Una vez que la hacen, a mi hermano lo amarran a una patrulla y lo arrastran un estimado de 3 calles. Y una vez que está dentro de las instalaciones.
So they got him in that facility there after they dragged him 3 blocks, chained him to the car, dragged him 3 blocks.
Lo golpean. Le colocan corriente en los testículos.
They beat him up, put electrical charges to all of his body parts, including his private parts.
Le hacen descargas eléctricas.
Electric
le
shocks.
dieron con un martillo pequeño en los pies y de esa manera le desprenden las uñas de los pies. Lo vuelven a golpear, le colocan una capucha y le rocían insecticida. Luego, a mi hermano lo sumergen su cabeza en agua y lo cuelgan alrededor de 15 días. Luego que lo cuelgan, al momento de aislarlo, lo colocaron en un cuarto oscuro, en una celda que era muy oscura.
Dark cell with cockroaches.
Tenía cucarachas, tenía roedores,
rats,
y no tenía
no
ventilación. Cuando yo vi a mi hermano a los 48 días, mi hermano no podía girar la cabeza.
She finally got to see him. She finally got to see him 48 days later. He couldn't move his head or anything. I don't know if he was paralyzed or what. So he got a 30-year sentence. He got a 30-year sentence for that, but that was only because he confessed to it after they I mean, you're going to die from that. That is what communism is, right? Let's not play little games here. This is life or death. This freedom in this country is really at stake, right?
Yeah. Well,
Joe,
it's interesting because. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
No, I'm just going to say, Joe, people ask me what's the difference between socialism and communism, and I say the only difference I see is the size of the gun. It is the socialism is the pathway to the communism. No question about it. History has shown that.
And that was Karl Marx's design. The Communist Manifesto, that's the design of he wants to push socialism as far as possible in order to bring out his Marxist ideals.
Mm-hmm.
So here's something else as we go in with the whole Christianity thing, because I think that being the majority that we are, and having God on our side, the true God, you would think that this would be a cakewalk, but we have to get involved, right? Christians have got to get involved and participate and become activists and get people on the school boards, get judges in there, politically speaking, representatives, senators, you name it. We've got to do voting blocks, like you were saying, but we got to make it happen.
Yeah, 100% with you. I tell people it's a mixture of do the faithful stuff that God already commanded. Be faithful in church. Love your wife. Have a bunch of kids and homeschool them. Pastor Vodi Bachum's famous statement was, if you send your kids off to Caesar's school, don't be surprised when they return as Romans. The public schools are primarily indoctrination facilities for Marxism right now, so homeschool your kids. And then we get active. We've got the people. We can do this. We need to be bold. We need to not be afraid of being name called. We also need to keep holding the line when even our allies get sad, right? It's like, when we're deporting some, rapist and people are like, oh, but it's so sad. He's losing his home. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, we're going to have to be tough. You're going to have to do things that make people cry sometimes. And I think we need to hold the line on that. The same thing that makes us tough when people call us names and we're like, yeah, whatever, is the same thing when somebody's crying because we're deporting someone who was here illegally. And I'm like, oh, but they weren't a criminal. I'm like, well, yeah, but they were, because they were here illegally. Hold the line.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Illegal, Pastor, would you agree with me?
Means something.
Would you agree with me, Pastor, when I say we also need men to stand up on the front lines? What I'm seeing is
absolutely
women are taking the place of men, and most of I say to the men whenever I'm speaking in front of a group, I said, if you're only concerned that your favorite team is down by 10 at halftime, you're part of the problem.
Exactly right.
We need the men to stand up.
I second that. Of all those school board meetings all over the state and all over the nation, that's, again, I use that as a representative example because it's easily understood by most. In school board meetings, there are very, very, very few men that stand up against what's happening in our disastrous K through 12 system. We know just the tip of the iceberg. We know that nationally we're at about 30% literacy, that what's happening in K through 12 is, I could go on for the next half hour. Hopefully by now you're aware of that. If you're not, go to Protect Ohio Children. That is a website, assuming most of our audience is primarily located in the state of Ohio. You can find your school district, figure out what's going on there. We built an indoctrination heat map, etc. While I served as a board member, chair, and territory lead, right now I'm simply a volunteer who's passionate about these things. But the point that I want to make is going all across, crisscrossing, and trying to train communities on how to figure out what's happening in local school districts and then get them organized to go into local school board meetings and demand better. It was overwhelmingly, it was like 99% women. And I continue to ask, what the heck? Dudes, where are the men?
Yeah, that's a good
to your point, think about when a man does stand up, you think about Charlie Kirk. Like Charlie was on the front line. He's going to the various colleges. He's holding the line, and how quickly people respond. God designed men to lead. And when men step up and do that work, it's actually quite effective. And Charlie Kirk's a great example of that. And we don't have enough people stepping up to fulfill that legacy. So I'm 100% with you, brother.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can we talk about, we were going to have another guest on, and part of the discussion I was going to ask him a question about, and you may be familiar with it as well, is Westlake, Ohio, because he was saying that the Muslims or whatever in Crocker Park, they were selling the Quran outside, and not having any fear
Angry Joe's
about
Chicken.
it.
They were giving it away.
Just giving it away, confronting people about the faith, and but I think he had made the point that if you try to do that with Bibles, they'd probably kick you out of there. But the other issue was that Westlake was a big hub, becoming a big hub for Muslims. And we see that also in Minnesota. We see that without a doubt. Do you have any comments on any of that? Or?
Yeah, so a couple of things there. One, they are undoubtedly clustering around major urban centers. So Cleveland and Columbus, which if you live in Westlake, which is, you know, essentially a suburb of Cleveland, you're seeing an overrepresentation of Muslims there because there's so many of them there. And so part of me says, like, yes, be concerned. Another part of me is like, it's not as bad as you think, but think it's bad as you think, so you respond. Don't think we're losing, but see that it's an issue. So I'd say that's part of it. Here's another thing to note. If you talk to some veterans who were in Afghanistan or Iraq, and they're like, you know, when the Muslim call to prayer goes on, you know, they mostly go to their homes or into their, you know, Islamic temples, and they pray there. They don't pray out in the street in Muslim countries. They do that here in an attempt to establish dominance, right? I was talking to somebody, Muslims actually organize when they're going to go and shop together so that they can look like a large number of people. And so part of that's like they're trying to throw their weight around. 1 to 1.3% of the population is trying to throw their weight around. One of the things that they're doing there in Westlake is Hangry Joe's Chicken, which, by the way, sells halal meat, which people don't realize. Halal meat means that it has gone through the sacrificial process, for lack of a better term, where they're praying a prayer to the demon god Allah while they're killing the animal. And so I'm like, try to avoid places that advertise halal, because that's part of Islam pushing its thing. But in Hangry Joe's Chicken there in Crocker Park was giving away Qurans, which was against the policy. Now, my understanding is Stark has, the company that runs Crocker Park, has clamped that down, but they wouldn't let us give away Bibles, right? And so to their credit, they're treating it fairly. But what was interesting is right out in front of Hangry Joe's, there's this little alleyway to parking, and the Muslims were actually laying out their carpets, blocking the way to pray. And so note, that's not what they do in their countries. They do it here to try to intimidate, right? And you'll hear these things about like Muslims laying out, you know, their rugs and praying in front of churches or in whatever. Disrupt that, right? Go and pray to Christ in front of them. Like if they're going to try to throw their weight around, get in the way. If they're going to try to, you know, get some zoning variance to be able to build a mosque, don't let them. Block the variance. It's public blasphemy. Our founding fathers wouldn't have stood for that. So, yeah, I would say that's part of what's happening here is they're trying to throw their weight around. They're trying to make it look like there's more of them than they are. And we need to just not be intimidated by it. We need to have our own. We need to have our prayer meeting for Jesus. Like we need to go and like establish dominance because we already have. Yeah.
You know, there's something connected to that, Joe. I want to highlight. If there's some issue that's important to the left, and they've got some politician they can put behind it, it's a fair bet that they can organize freely and openly in public. They'll probably pull in some NGO, which stands for non-governmental organization, or maybe pick a nonprofit, and they'll team up, and then they'll get some newspaper coverage, and they'll say, this issue is really important to us. We want to advocate for this. Fill in the blank. It can be whatever, renaming a park. It could be anything, really, literally anything they can dream up. That is, and I'm going to borrow from the left, their whole months and months and months of defend the republic or whatever. Defend the democracy. That's what they kept saying, as if we're actually a democracy. We're not. We're a constitutional republic. But
right on.
They can organize, advocate, spearhead, and nobody bats an eye. So how is it different if the overwhelming majority of the United States, and certainly the overwhelming majority of Ohio, which identify as Christian, organize and say, we want this thing. We are a giant block of people. We the people. So in other words, those knuckleheads out there that bought into this thing, and I include Frank LaRose in that because he's got posters up all over the boards of election that it just enraged me, saying whatever, something about us being a democracy. If those people are going to go out there and bang on their pots and pans and shout through PA systems and amplifiers and blow whistles and scream and shout no kings because we have to defend democracy. Democracy is people advocating for themselves and voting for things they care about. If the church chooses to organize and say, no, we don't actually want DEI and CRT and racial division and sustainability, and we're quoting that because none of these things ever actually get defined. If we don't want them, we absolutely have every right to organize to protest them. One other connected piece, and this goes back, I touched on something, and I was glad to hear Pastor Sams respond to it, and apparently we're cut from the same cloth and think the same way. The whole name-calling thing is ridiculous, and it is clear, and it's designed for a purpose. However, I will be quick to point out, and I've said it many, many times, it easily backfires on the left because they are terrified of us doing the same thing to them. I'm going to give an example. There was an event a couple of years ago where Allison Russo, who is the kind of the de facto head of the Democrat Party in the state of Ohio, Allison Russo happens to have found a group in the Sandusky area on the social media platform that was kind of indirectly revolved around homeschooling. And there were some messages. Somebody apparently was a Nazi or white supremacist or something. And what she tried to do is say, oh my gosh, we can't possibly have homeschooling because look at these three people in Sandusky. They're probably representative of all of the United States. And it was a ridiculous sham. But news media showed up from all over ABC and NBC and CNN and all that. They're like, what? Oh my gosh. Ohio, tell us more about this. Is there racism under every rock and around every corner and hiding in every bush and tree? Well, no, there isn't. I was one of many people that pushed back on the obvious nature of that facade, and I actually ended up calling Allison Russo a racist. And asking the question. I asked the question of Allison Russo. Allison, are you a racist? Because all of the evidence I'm able to find suggests that children who leave government-run schools do better. And there is no demographic that does better than Black America leaving government education. So when Black families, little Black boys and girls, leave K through 12 and get into anything else, really, literally just about anything else, they do astronomically better than Hispanic, Asian, Middle Eastern, white, you name it. So, Allison Russo, are you racist? I noticed that after I made those comments, I don't know if I can claim a personal victory there. I was one of many that was pushing back against Allison Russo. But she clammed up and went silent, and the news media disappeared because she cannot have a smear all over media out there asking the question if she's racist. My point is, do it back to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to do it back to them. Pastor, I want to ask a question here because I've been in contact with other pastors similar to yourself doing something similar to this. Do you know, let's see, one pastor that we have on here is Chris Long. We've had him on multiple times. He's out in Akron. I don't know if you've ever heard of him or not. It's
no, but
Ohio
sounds like
Christian
my kind
Alliance.
of guy.
Yeah, so he's a very activist church, Ohio Christian Alliance. We've got you. There's another church out in, I think, in Macedonia, a big church that's a very activist church as well. So I'm thinking, we need to start coordinating some efforts here. I've got to start working with you, with these other churches. You got to start working with them because that right there is a big voting block. That right there is a lot of people in Northeast Ohio with big parishes that can really start to get this ball moving. And there's others out there too, but I mean that's a starting point. So anyhow, any thoughts on that? And I want to thank you again for coming on. And let me show you the church here. This is your church. So let's show it again. Make disciples, gather together, get equipped. Epistle to the Romans. Here's your website.
And buddy.
Joe, I do have something else to add.
Go ahead, Brian.
Me too.
Yeah, it's a few years ago here in Mentor, there was a Lutheran church that had a tea time with the Muslims. And I was curious, so I attended. And what it was the leaders of this Muslim group, they were trying to understand what do Christians understand, or what do they think about Muslims. And so they asked me the question, well, what's one word that when you think about Muslims, what do you think about? And I said, well, it's taqiyya. They were shocked that I knew what taqiyya meant. And it means that the Muslim faith will allow their followers to lie on behalf of the religion. So I just issue a caution if there are any Christian groups, and I use air, as Jonathan says, I use air quotes on that, the Christian groups that are bringing Muslims in here, and they're going to have some tea time just so that they can get together with the friendly Muslims. I just say be very careful. Be very wary.
You are right. You're fully correct, brother. You're exactly right. By the way, to your point, Joe, about the churches getting together, I am 100% with you. I'd love for you to facilitate those introductions. And I'll also say, we were talking earlier about pastors being soft, and there's a lot of them that are soft. Here's the thing. They're going to go which way the wind blows. When we start pushing our weight around and we say, no, this is the way it's going to be, they're actually going to get behind. If 1% of the Muslims can push things around and get, I mean, one year they got something like 80 people in office in Ohio in like whatever 2022, right? And various, like small positions as well as large. But the thing I'm saying is, if we start pushing our weight around, those soft pastors are going to start following us. Right? We don't need to have, 60%, 80% of the people saying, yeah, we're going to do this. We need like 5%. Right? And so when the word gets out that, hey, this is how we're going to do things now, those guys that have been drifting along with the wind are going to be on our side. And that's like, well, they're still going to be soft, but at least they're going to be soft in our direction. So I'm with you, brother. Happy to help in any way I can. Such an honor to be on here, you guys. Thank you so much.
Well, actually, before we sign off, sorry to interrupt, but before I lose my chance here, I want to interject two things. A big part of the design, the push, the reason behind getting people into office, into small, local, regional office, and sometimes that's just simply a board position or volunteer position, is those people then go on to climb and find their way, they work their way up in government. Yeah. There's something called precinct strategy. Dan Schultz and I have been teaching the nation on that for years. It has to do with starting to focus on local politics. That's where politics happens. We focus all the time on DC and Columbus and big politics. Small ball wins the game. Small ball is what our enemies have figured out better than we the people. So we need to be getting good people, better people, hard-fighting, scrappy, patriotic Americans into local offices. We're not doing a good job of that yet, but deploying the strategy of getting collaboration between churches makes the difference. The last thing I mentioned earlier, there is a divide and conquer initiative. There's a divide and conquer mentality that's that has been spearheaded for 100+ years against America. The number one focal point is black versus white. They have been working hard on pitting us against each other because if and when we collaborate, we accomplish great things. I'm looking at a great article by Donald T. Eason from August 19th, Why Urban Pastors See Faith as the Key to Reducing Government Dependence. This is a group of urban pastors, primarily black churches, that are invited to Washington, D.C. for a strategic summit. It's a clergy summit in D.C. I would have to keep reading to find the date of that. I'll share it on social media on Ohio Political News. But my point in this discussion is it can be common, and it's frustratingly common for some pastors to think, well, that's a black church. The black churches are organizing themselves, and there is actually an organization of black pastors that I'm aware of, and they work really hard at getting better for us, the United States. But if and when we have the white, I have to air quote all this because we start talking in like the same ridiculous terms that the left uses, the white pastors and the black pastors. No, in my book, they're all just simply pastors. They're speaking the word of God to we the people. But if we can push in that direction and collaborate, that power magnifies significantly. And the more that grows, and our enemy knows this. That's why they work really hard, really, really hard on keeping us divided at all times. But It's up to us. It's up to we the people, your pastor, your local church. And if it's not a good one and they're not doing these things, move on. Find a better church that actually does. Find the real church, the real pastor behind an actual pulpit who is up there fighting and advocating for our constitutional republic. And if they somehow manage to find themselves siloed into this thought of like, well, I'm this type of pastor and only this denomination, and I only really kind of congregate with other white pastors or black pastors, tell them, no, that's not what saves America. Collaborate. Get out there, get in front of, and collaborate with anyone and everyone willing to advocate for real, traditional Judeo-Christian biblical values.
Pastor, I've got one last question, then I'm going to let you fly.
Sure.
But you have a church that is an activist church, which seems to go countercultural to a lot of the other pastors that are out there. So have you had trouble with attendance? Have you had trouble with other pastors? Has there been any pushback against you? Maybe a little insight.
Yeah. That's a great question. So over the years, especially during COVID, we ended up leaving our denomination because they were upset at us that we were still meeting during COVID. Now, we were careful and all that kind of stuff. We took a couple of weeks where we were meeting remotely. But we got back together, and I was reminding them, like, these pastors where I'm like, there's nobody sick right now, and you're being soft. And so we eventually found our way out of our denomination. So certainly there's been pushback. However, as soon as we said, yeah, we're going to keep on meeting, our church grew by like 33% in 2020. We were a tiny little church that had been meeting in a house, right? We grew from there. And we continue to hold the line. And then the sad reality is that when Charlie Kirk got murdered, I preached a sermon on fighting the enemy that we're facing, and I addressed it head on. And we saw growth that Sunday, and we have continued to see growth since. We're still not a huge church, but we went from like 30, 40 people to like 90 people. And so I would say, yeah, we've faced pushback, but it's led to growth. We've had people get mad and leave, yeah, but overall we've had growth because there's a whole lot of people out there that know that there is something true. They know that God is real. They know Christ is King. They know it in their heart, and they want to find a church that's going to teach the truth. And as we said, we've had 10 baptisms, our little church, just this year. And the Lord's at work. So I would say, yeah, I've had pushback, but it's been worth it, and the fruit has been way better. So I'll say to the soft pastors, stop being soft. It's way more fun to be disliked by the world and loved by Christ. So
there you go.
Hold the line.
Amen.
All right, I'm going to give you some applause. I'm going to give you the confetti. So I hate to mess up your room there, but you have to clean that up afterwards. Hey, thanks again. Really appreciate it. Thank you. God bless you very much, man.
Thanks. Have a great day. Glad to be on here, and I'll encourage everybody, if you'd like, my book's available on Underground Seminary.
Oh yeah, go ahead and wait. Your book's not at Amazon yet, though, right?
So the book has not been released. It releases in November, but you can get chapter 1 for free if you go to undergroundseminary.net/Christian Federalism, and we'll have that coming out soon. Sign up, you'll get that. We can go from there. Have a great day, y'all. Thank you all very much for having me.
Okay,
thank you, Pastor.
Thank you very much. God bless you. Okay, that was Pastor Daniel Sams. That was pretty good. Did he impress you? He
absolutely.
You,
I was absolutely serious when I said we've got to meet, because there's something to this. I see meeting with Christian leaders here in Lake County, and now you've got a Christian leader on your show. God is telling us something that we've got to meet. And
I
get
think
together.
so. I think so, and I was very sincere when I said that. We've got to meet with him. We've got to get together with Chris Long. We've got to get together. I forgot that pastor's name. He's out in Macedonia, but he's at the Thirsty Cowboy quite a bit. What is that? Lisa Woods. Lisa Woods puts together McFan. She puts together McFan. He's been out. He's got a mega church. So, and there's others. It's like, why don't we start collaborating with them? Because that's our kind of people
100%.
right there. They're strong grassroots. Yep. They believe the conservative values. They want change. They want good, strong candidates. I mean, it's everything that we've been pushing for here. We got to kind of do that. I'm waiting for my next guest.
We've got to bring Ron Young back onto the show, Joe. We got to have Ron talking about his September 17th gospel revival. Lake Park.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. So we'll have to look into that. I'm waiting for my guest. Gary Cates was supposed to join us. He was supposed to come on. Now the only thing with Gary is, hopefully he's not having trouble. He wanted to talk about issue 3. Strong Republican. He was an Ohio State senator. He's on the State Central Committee. He goes to every single Lincoln Day dinner anywhere in the state. He's been to more than any other human being. So he's great. He's retired now, and he just goes. So
Joe, double check your phone just to make sure. I don't know if you have your ringer off. But just in case, maybe he's trying to get hold of you. If he's having trouble getting onto the show.
Can I mention a few things, Joe, while you're...
Go ahead, go for it.
Trying to get the guests? Okay. I want to say thank you to Skip Claypool in Geauga County. He has been trying to get us a booth at the Geauga County Fair. They supposedly were sold out and we couldn't get a booth. And they told us that we're not allowed to collect signatures on private property within 1,000 feet of their fair entrance. And Skip Claypool has set them straight on that, and they have backed off on that, and they're no longer going to pursue any action against Axe Ohio Tax for collecting signatures on private property.
Oh, that's awesome!
So again,
that's awesome.
A big shout out to Skip for that.
Kent, go. Kent, what do you got going, Kent? You want me to put this up?
Yeah, we got a couple things. Let's start off with Ohio Political News Media. We're gonna at least check out the front page of our website, ohiopoliticalnews.com. If you want to advertise, we run a 24/7 stream over there with clips and podcasts of the shows. And be part of the media. And if you want to advertise, let Joe at ohiopoliticalnews.com or Kent at ohiopoliticalnews.com, and we will run your ad. And throughout the day, it goes on 24 hours a day, and it's also on Rumble 24 hours a day. So you can be on both platforms. You can chat in the chat. Also make sure to go over to ohiopoliticalnews.com/shop, and you can also go and get any Ohio property tax merch, and also Ohio Political News merch. Check it out on the website. And then also I want to this is my little start. I want to let everybody know about FMN Productions. It's a way to basically, we are actually, let's put this one up. FMN Productions. I've been, and Joe's going to be working with Ohio Political News Media. But if you are interested in not worrying about the tech and doing a podcast like we're doing right now, or any kind of live streaming, video production, anything, and you don't want to worry about the tech and you just want to worry about the content, just reach out. And the email is fmnproductionsmedia@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook at FMN Productions there. We do anything production wise. You have seen what we've done for Ohio Political News. I've been doing this for over almost 20 years of any kind of social media podcast production. I also used to do Fiat Ministry Network, where Joe and I met. We've been doing that, and so we know what we're doing. We have the knowledge. And if you want to worry about just the content and not about the tech, tune in and sign up. I will have a phone number coming up, but if you want to reach out, We're on Facebook or the email. Thanks.
Sooner the better.
Thanks, Joe.
Use that link. Okay. Oh. Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'll just do. Hang on a minute. I'll just do it through the phone. That's fine. All right. All right. So, what I want to do here now is Gary Cates is with me. Are you all set there, Kent?
Yeah, we're done.
Okay. What I want to do is Gary Cates. He's in his car. And I'm going to use the old cell phone because we did this last time and it worked okay. We'll give it a try again. And
yeah, put it up on speakerphone and then put it near your micro.
Gary, are you there?
I'm here.
All right, very good. So I'm going to put the phone up to the microphone, and through the wonders of radio, podcasting, you name it, we can hear you. How are you tonight? I was just saying that. So wait, let's start this off. Well, first of all, you were a state senator, right? For how many years were you a state senator?
Well, I was in both chambers. I was in the House for 9.5 years and in the Senate for 6 years. And but I've been out of the legislature since 2011.
Okay, you were with the State Central Committee, of course. I know that. And also, yes, I was saying that you attend more Lincoln Day dinners than any other human being alive, right?
Well, I get to a lot of them. I don't get to all of them, but I get to a lot. I've been traveling the state extensively for the last 3+ years, getting to know my colleagues, such as you, much better in their home turf, getting to know party chairmen and legislators. And so, in fact, the reason I wasn't available to be with you earlier tonight, I'm en route from a picnic that I just spoke at on Issue 3 in Highland County in the Hillsborough area in southern Ohio.
Okay, so you're coming from an event right now where you were the speaker, and what a coincidence. Let's talk about Issue 3 because that seems to be your bread and butter. This is something that you're going around the state talking about. So could you give us your spiel here on it? Go ahead.
Yes, well, there is on the ballot in November, State Issue 3 is the only statewide issue. There's a reason why number 3 was picked instead of 1 and 2 because there's a new method involved. I won't get into that. But State Issue 3 is important for us to make sure we vote yes on it. What is it? It's to require photo ID to vote in person in Ohio, and it places it in the Ohio Constitution. Currently, that the ORC, the Ohio Revised Code, has photo ID required to vote in person. We're making sure we take the extra step necessary to put this in the Constitution. The answer and the question why we're doing that is because should the Democrats ever take control back of power in Ohio with Governor Amy Acton and a Democratic House Speaker and a Democratic Senate President, we know the first thing they're going to do on day one is to rip up all of the election laws that we have put into place as Republicans over the last however many years to improve safeguard for our elections and to eliminate voter fraud. So this very simply puts it in the Constitution. There's no additional requirements versus what people are doing today.
Okay, so we got to vote yes on Issue 3.
Vote yes on Issue 3 to put this in the Constitution. That's what we're doing.
And a lot of questions I get on it too, Gary, is this voter ID. It's strictly for when you're in person, right? It does not apply to mail-in ballots.
Yes, that's an issue that is going to have to be addressed at a later time by the legislature about what to do with mail-in ballots, and because my understanding is that the biggest users of mail-in ballots are people who live in assisted living and nursing facilities that physically can't get to the polls, and a lot of them choose to use that method. And we do not want to disenfranchise those voters by any means. So that's an issue that will still be out there. We're trying to encourage people to do as much in-person voting, whether it's early or on election day, as possible. I personally discourage people from using mail-in balloting simply because I think it's the least secure of anything. But as we go, there are a few caveats I just point out that why we still have that.
No, I got you. So I've got a couple co-hosts here. Maybe they can ask a quick question.
Sure.
Brian, if you got a question, but I have to be able to relay it to him, so it's got to be a short question.
I have to plead a little ignorance on this on the whole issue, so I really don't have a question.
Jonathan, do you have a question on it? Issue 3 at all?
Yeah. So I'm going to struggle to make this.
Got to make it short because I have to funnel it to him. Yeah.
Yeah. We seem to have a disconnect between the Ohio Republican Party, Frank LaRose, and our activities at the Board of Elections. We have roughly 25% on average mail-in ballots. We are focusing on trying to get something in that allows a massive amount, a quarter of all ballots that are collected by the state, to create an exemption for them. And meanwhile, we have Frank LaRose, that head-scratching, mind-numbingly why, I don't know, has decided to mail out millions and millions and millions of ballots all over the state of Ohio. And Frank LaRose seems to be encouraging mail-in ballots when we know we have issues. Anyone who talks like we're all tough and we have great elections in Ohio is only fooling themselves.
All right, I think I got the gist of that. Okay, so, Gary, the question is this. Why does, like, the Secretary of State, Frank LaRose, mail out ballots to everybody? Isn't that counterproductive? Because we want to cut down on mail-in ballots. We want people going there in person, right?
I agree. I know that one time that was a widespread practice, was to automatically send people absentee ballots. And but I believe the practice now is that we do not send out any absentee ballots unless they are requested by a voter, a registered voter.
So is that the new policy then, or would that be the...
No, that's not what's happening.
My understanding is that is against whether it's a rule or law, you just cannot send out absentee ballots at random to people. In other words, if I want an absentee ballot, I have to request one. You just can't send me one as a matter of practice. I'm glad to see that, because I think it's a good way to cut down on fraudulent voting.
Yeah, that would
actually.
That
would so, Joe, clarification.
Yeah.
So
I personally tell people, and I personally support that, vote in person, whether it's early voting or on election day here. That's the safest, most secure thing to do.
Well, two things.
Okay, hang on a minute. Go ahead.
Two things. The first is that it's wonderful for Gary to say that, but Gary has very little impact on Ohio voters' behavior. Ohio voters' behavior is shifting dramatically at a very fast pace in the direction of absentee voting. So what I believe is happening in the state of Ohio is not that absentee ballots are being scattered all over the state, but requests for absentee ballots are being proactively mailed to, I think, something like virtually everybody on our bloated, overstuffed roster and our voter rolls.
Well, it could be. Okay. Well, I have a co-host who kind of thinks that they're going to be mailing the ballots out to everybody, and I personally don't know.
No, the ballot request. Those are two different things. One is, hey, Board of Elections, I'd like an absentee ballot.
Right. So, we'll just have to work and get something definitive on that. Gary, what event did you just come from again? Which one was that?
I was at the Highland County Republican Party picnic, and so they kindly allowed me to speak on issue 3. Colleen O'Donnell was there as a candidate, as was Mike Carey. About 100 people showed up, and it was a nice Sunday afternoon affair.
Joe, I do have a question.
Okay, I got a question. Hang on a second. Go ahead.
Yeah. With all 88 counties, are all 88 counties, the Board of Elections, are they all working unanimously? They all do the same thing, or do they have the latitude to decide for their particular county?
As opposed to what? I just want to make sure I give
well, I mean, do they... I was always under the impression that all Board of Elections work in unison. They're all operating the same. But with this amendment, I'm finding out that that's not necessarily the case. Some will look at petitions in a different light than somebody else. So I'm just wondering, with this ballot initiative, are they all following the same rules and regulations handed down by the state?
Gary, the question is, are all of the 88 counties unison in how they are handling mail-in ballots? And I think you were referring to mail-in ballots, right, Brian?
Right.
Yeah. Are all of them handling mail-in ballots the same way, all 88 counties? Is there unison? Do you know?
Yes, as my understanding is that every Board of Elections here follows the Ohio Revised Code and pertinent rules issued by the Secretary of State on the handling of all ballots. So that should be consistent uniformly throughout Ohio.
Hey, Joe, I have an answer.
Go ahead. Hang on one second. Go ahead.
Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose is mailing absentee ballot applications to all registered voters in the state of Ohio. Ohio's illegal requirement to send these unsolicited applications to every registered voter in every even-year general elections, a practice that has been in place since 2012. The Ohio Controlling Board recently approved spending $2.5 million for this universal mailing, which covers approximately 8 million registered voters. So what this does is gives a ballot request, not the ballot itself, a request to have a ballot mailed to you to every single of the 8 million registered voters. Now, remember, connected to that $8 million voter figure is the approximately 1.3-ish million bad or questionable entries on Ohio's voter rolls. So we have somewhere between high 6, 7, maybe 8 million voters, and pretty much every single one of them is going to be nudged and encouraged via a direct, expensive piece of mail showing up in their mailbox for them to pull an absentee ballot. This works directly counter to everything Gary is talking about. And everybody who does that is not subject to voter ID. There is no voter ID requirement for them whatsoever. So right. 25% or 30%, or maybe next election cycle it'd be 40% and eventually 90%, or we could become like Oregon, where 100% of ballots, I think it's Oregon, or 100% of ballots are all mail-in, and maybe none have voter ID requirement. So that's the disconnect. That's the problem that I see. And I don't see the Ohio Republican Party, our current supermajority, and I'm air quoting that, in Ohio, or anybody, and certainly not Frank LaRose's office, working to address any of these myriad issues.
Yeah, I got you. All right. But I think that's a little bit out of Gary's realm here, because he's not the Secretary of State.
It's directly connected.
Well, no, because Gary is saying that here. Okay, let me just finish this up here. All right, so Gary, it sounds like Frank LaRose is going to be sending out ballots to everybody, or asking everybody if they want a ballot. That's a lot of money. Ballot request. Okay, but that's a little bit out of your league. You are basically saying that you need people to vote yes on issue 3. That is really the crux of what you're trying to get across, going to all these county parties and things, correct?
That's right. We want to put photo ID in the Constitution in order to vote in Ohio. It is laying the foundation to prevent fraud.
Gotcha. Hey, let me ask you another question, kind of off topic, sort of, not a lot. How's the enthusiasm looking right now for the Republican Party? You were just at an event. How was the reception, let's say, for like Colleen O'Donnell, for all of them? Was a lot of excitement, electricity?
She was the only statewide candidate there today. But we had 2 legislators that spoke also. I don't know the population of Highland County, but I would say there are 100 people there. And on a Sunday afternoon, people are giving their time for a picnic there. Is a good sign here of the people that are really committed. Their enthusiasm, their energy is there, and they were admonished that get out there and share your enthusiasm with other people. Make sure they understand what's at stake this fall with all the offices and issue 3. So I'm we're sitting now 72 days out from the close of the election on November 3rd, whatever the date is here. So we got 10 weeks to go. It's going to really ramp up here and go by really super fast.
Wow, 10 weeks. That's a scary thought. Wow.
I went to a Bengals preseason game last night, and you realize how close fall is when you're playing preseason football.
Yeah, in 2 weeks the Buckeyes start, which is my team.
Oh, yes. Yes.
All right. Well, hey, I appreciate you calling in and everything, talking about that. And issue 3, it's very, very important. Yeah, we have to pass it. We got to get it passed, got to get a constitutional amendment.
Right. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be with you. I'm sorry for the confusion. I'm glad we could hook up tonight and have a discussion. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Gary. Thank you again. Take care.
Bye-bye.
So, Joe, there was a question there in the comments. A commenter asked, hey, I haven't received an absentee ballot request in the mail. Is this really happening? Yes, it is really happening. The timing is the applications typically arrive in mailboxes in August. So every single registered voter in the state of Ohio should expect a document in the mail from the Ohio Secretary of State's office asking whether or not you would like an absentee ballot. If you mail it back in again, then you should expect to receive an absentee ballot sometime in October. We know from looking at really history and all over the country and the way that elections run, it's during that October, remember the election season, whatever it is, October, November into December, and then if you're in California, maybe you give yourself 6 months to count the votes, ballots, whatever, that ridiculous charade. That period of time is when you should expect that not only as a showering of ballots go out, but also there's nefarious activity around collecting them. There is a warning here from Secretary Frank LaRosa's office, has warned voters to be cautious of similar unsolicited mailers from outside groups such as Voter Participation Center and Center for Voter Information, which are not affiliated with the state and may contain outdated or confusing information. So on top of Secretary of State Frank LaRosa's office just proactively asking, hey, all of Ohio, would you like to vote absentee? In addition to that, we have this cost, $2.5 million to mail that. And we have other organizations, other entities or groups or whatever, who are piggybacking on that and making things that look like, according to this, what I'm reading, that are designed to look like that to confuse voters and then, who knows, get them to do something.
Well, there's a lot of problems we know with the election integrity. I'm not sold that we have the gold standard here in Ohio.
No.
I think we have a better standard than most states. It needs improvement. It needs work. I got it. But here's the point. I agree with you 100%. I don't like it getting mailed out to everybody. I think that is, you're asking for trouble. And why we're doing that, I don't know. But that's something we can work on with the next Secretary of State. So that should be Robert Sprague. Robert Sprague should be the next Secretary of State. And so that is something that we can work with him to accomplish. I'm going to work to get him on this show, and that is something that we can talk to him about. I have made a commitment to get a lot of these statewide candidates, maybe all of them, eventually on the show, at least one a week now going forward, because we got to talk to them, and we can ask them directly some of these questions. So, but, Gary Cates, he doesn't work with Frank LaRose, but he is a strong Republican. He's a good conservative, a great guy, and he is going around everywhere to talk about that. I want you to watch this here. I got something that is a commercial. Linda Caudill, she's going to be on the show next week. She said she'll come on. But she did a commercial for Vivek Ramaswamy. Watch this.
I had to put my mother in a nursing home because she had fallen. A few weeks after that is when Amy Acton shut down the state. My mother didn't understand it. It traumatized her. She didn't know why her family couldn't come visit her. 2 months later, she died. Amy Acton is to blame for this. It happened to a lot of families, and it shouldn't have happened. I will never forgive Amy Acton for what she did to my family. Ohio can't afford liberal Amy Acton.
Okay, so anyhow, that's a commercial. Linda starred in it. Linda Caudill. She'll be on our podcast next week. True story and everything.
I happen to agree with her 100%. That was shameful. Those poor people who died without their family around their bedside. Not acceptable at all.
Yeah, what happened? And, you know, that kind of goes back to our first segment, too, when we were talking about communism and everything like that. I mean, we literally became a communist country at that point. With her, but also with DeWine. I mean, we can't forget that. He's the one who hired her. She was a Democrat. Right. She was an operative. She helped Obama. And so he brought her on board. God only knows why. She wasn't qualified for it, but he brought her on board. And the whole state, that we were the first state. You say we're never first in anything. We were first in being shut down. We were the first state to get shut down for COVID. So we were first in that. I hear something. I hear, is that rain? Somebody got rain coming in?
Not here.
I hear it too.
You hear that?
Not on my side. Yeah, it's paper rustling or rain or something. Maybe it's. Are we starting to do weathercasting? Are we going to start doing the weathercast?
Hey, anything. If we can get a sponsor for the weather, we'll do it. Okay, it's as simple as that. All right, quickly, what did you think about that commercial?
It's a good commercial. I like Linda, and she's spot on. I mean, it's ridiculous that it's to even give any thought to rewarding somebody with such atrocious bad behavior, such destructive nature, that had this ridiculous motivation to destroy, just decimated Ohio's economy, our GDP, childhood education, early childhood development, you name it. Ohio was at the forefront of just doom and destruction that just got meted out by these I like calling them the Branch Covidians. That whole thing, this whole narrative, and they just kept. I think that they were just doubled over with laughter, pointing at the people who were willing to follow along. Every couple of days, they dreamt up something new, like COVID doesn't exist below 3.2 feet. So if you stand up at a restaurant, you have to put your mask on.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're sitting down, and now today you should wear 2 masks. But on Tuesdays, you should wear 3 masks. But if you're at a restaurant after 10 o'clock, then COVID gets worse. So restaurants have to close at 10 o'clock. But all the big box retailers, they can stay open. And the abortion clinics, they can stay open. Whatever. It was utter nonsense.
It was crazy.
And
absolute crazy.
To say, hey, let's make this woman a governor of a state in response. Yeah. She has accomplished nothing in her life other than fumbling around and being at the forefront, being the figurehead of the doom, death, and destruction of Ohio.
Yeah. Yes, she was. And just piggybacking off of that for a second, and you can say whatever you want, Brian, but, the church is all shut down, too. I was really disappointed at how the pastors made you wear a mask, or really, really frowned upon the fact if you didn't walk in there with a mask on. It was such bull crap. And again, they caved. They folded like a cheap suit. Dang.
Yeah, well, that will show you exactly what's that's going to happen unless we have pastors that will stand up. They'll succumb to the threat of the communism. And whether we want to, believe it or not, it's headed in our direction unless we push back. And as we were talking about earlier in the show, we got to push back with strong Christian men.
Yep,
we really
absolutely.
Do. I can't tell you. Can I say something about Ramaswamy?
Go ahead.
He contacted me, and he likes the hat, and he wants his own Axe Ohio tax hat, so it's going out in the mail tomorrow to him, and hopefully we get a picture with Vivek Ramaswamy wearing our Axe Ohio tax. That would be That would be great.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. God bless them all. All right. Hey, we're going to call it a night here tonight.
Exceptions for rape or incest. You know what?
We got to listen to some real big, important
we're
words.
Here because we're fighting for a democracy.
Oh, good grief.
Fighting for a democracy.
I've got two more things, Joe.
And understand the difference here.
I can't interrupt her.
Understand the difference here. Moving forward. Moving forward. Understand the difference here.
Understand the difference. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I was in Lisbon, Ohio today. I was recording an individual that had lost his home. He because of the property taxes. I recorded him, and you'll see that on Lobbyists for Citizens, and also on our Facebook page for the Committee to Abolish Property Taxes. A very sad story. He's living in a probably less than 400 square feet at a motel that they've renovated somewhat into an apartment complex. And so if anyone in our listening audience, if they know of anyone that has lost their home to property taxes, please contact me at stoppropertytaxes@gmail.com, and I would like to interview those people just so that the rest of Ohioans know what's going on with their fellow Ohioans. And a favor to ask, on my Facebook page, I was told that, and I saw it, that someone has taken the Lobbyists for Citizens logo, and they have cloned my name. They put, instead of Brian Massey, they've got Brian Mass, M-A-S-S, and people are thinking that's me that is writing, and I found out that they said something that was untoward towards Geauga Commissioner Spitaleri, and he's all upset that he thought it was me, but it's not. So I tell people, just when you see something that it's not my name on it, and it is someone that is copying, we're trying to get Facebook to drop it, but they have chosen not to at this point. But maybe if we get a couple hundred people to tell Facebook that this is not right. There's a
complaint. You can lodge a complaint. If you're right, if a couple hundred people do that, maybe they do that. I've seen it several times myself, and my wife recently pointed it out. We were, I think, driving somewhere. She was scrolling Facebook and said, "Hey, what's this? It looks like Brian Massey, but it's not." I said, "Yeah, I'm aware of that. I've seen it. It's a clone." So yeah, go on to Facebook, find Lobbyists for Citizens. You'll find Brian Massey, and by all means, if you're in the listening audience, click the button. I think you can. There's a couple steps there. It's super easy. You can do it from your phone or desktop.
Yeah.
Register a complaint and point out that is a clone. Before I lose the microphone, I want to put something out there. I want to ask everybody in our listening audience, or if you're watching this later, to raise your hand and volunteer if you would like to fund abortion tourism. That's the process of paying for pregnant women to travel out of state and go somewhere like Ohio to abort their fetus, to kill babies. So I'm imagining very few people, and nobody in our audience, are actually raising their hand, willingly choosing to endorse, encourage, fund, and sponsor that sort of thing. However, I recently spotlighted a piece on Unwoke Academy, unwoke.academy. That is actually a website. It's highlighted at the top that goes into some of the money behind it, and you'll be surprised to discover some of the names. My background on Wall Street and doing investigative due diligence into money managers and follow the money led to somebody giving me a heads up. I was asked the question several days ago about three big companies, I'm sure you've heard of them, and asked the question, are they paying employees? Are they sponsoring abortion tourism? The answer is yes, and I found several other companies. It's not the complete list, but it's companies that if they're in your investment portfolio, if you're funding them in your IRA or 401k, then you're encouraging this. You're indirectly, or actually kind of directly, participating in giving them the money that they need in order to pay people to go and abort babies. I know for a fact that many people don't approve of that. I have a short video. It's about 9 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. It's posted on several social media platforms, and it speaks on exactly this. I covered this and similar things at unwoke.academy, following the money and pointing to many of the woke, terrible, anti-American, far-left agenda, bad things that we're seeing in society, and point out the fact that, unfortunately, we the people are funding much of it. It happens right under our noses. The next time you open your 401k statement, I want every American to be better armed and better understanding of what they're looking at, and stop, by all means, stop funding it, please.
Sounds good, man. Hey, I got to split. I got to get out of here. You guys have yourself a great night, okay?
Good night, all.
Have a good
Thanks,
night.
Joe. Thanks, Jonathan. Bye.